Okay, and we're live. Looks like the sound is working properly. Greetings, welcome to my channel. We're talking about the Liber notch today. Give everybody a little while to get here though. Go ahead and share this a few places. Oh yeah. Got to get a link from there to add here. What? Whoops. That's not what I meant to do. Watch my own live. Okay. Let's see here. What was I forgot what I was doing. Copy link to the Facebook group so that you can go to the PDF if you want through the Facebook group. Okay, so we'll go back to this, share this a few places. We're talking about the alphabet of desire today. Hey, Black Unigriffin. Hello, Felix. Like I said, we're talking about the alphabet of desire in the Liber Nox. Oh, I left the book sitting on the bench there. I don't suppose you'd bring that to me, Felix. Let's see. Share this in a few more groups. I gotta share it in Sorcerer's Guild. CMG, DKMU, etc. Okay, so I'll be right back. I gotta go grab the book. Okay, I'm back. I've been reading it on the back porch, and I just accidentally left it sitting there. Okay, so I have decided to have some beers with the book club tonight. This first one is a 12 Event Horizon Dark Lager, Czechoslovakian lager, which I usually really like. Yeah, that's good. All right. So, like I said, we'll be talking about the alphabet of desire. Yes, it is, Max. I didn't finish all of Liber Nox. It's been a busy week. I got all the way to the end of the alphabet of desire. We still have. Oh, I missed this little tiny bit. I missed the very last one. Maybe we'll just read that together so that we can go on to Liber Aeom or whatever was next. Aox. A something. Aeom. Yeah. So maybe we'll just do maybe we'll just read that one together and talk about it there at the end. Okay. So slow down a little. I was a little pressed for time getting in here today, so feeling a little speeded up, hyper. Give me just a moment to catch my recollect my brain. It's shooting all over the place. Thinking I need to hurry still. And I'm already here. Don't need to hurry now. So, anyways, yeah, my week's been pretty good. I been busy. Caught some fish this week. I actually caught a sea cucumber, which I didn't expect. And I don't know even know how I knew it was on my line. Just all of a sudden I knew there was something there. And even as I was reeling it in, it's not like it could fight back. It was just there. Somehow I knew I had a thing on there. I let him go. Cool looking creature though. Had some maintenance issues around the house that kept me a bit busy. So that's why I didn't finish reading the entire Liber Nox. Apparently I made it to all but the very end there. I mostly want to talk about the Alphabet of Desire though, because I'm getting a bit of a, what is that called? I hate the word Mandela effect, but I don't know what other term to use. Yeah, I'm getting a bit of a Mandela effect off of the Alphabet of Desire. Like I recognize all those symbols. I totally recognize all those symbols. And the whole thing makes sense. I'm actually fairly pleased with the cosmology he's using in the Alphabet of Desire. But honestly, if you were to ask me before today, or before I read that, what the Alphabet of Desire was, I would say that you were each supposed to create your own. And that is honestly what I remember reading in the Liber Null last time. So this is obviously my mind being a little silly, because like I said, I recognize all those symbols. I even know what most of them mean in context from seeing them in the chaos magic community. So I suppose it's not a full-on Mandela effect, because that's not, it's always been that. It's clearly always been that. It's just me literally remembering it wrong. And I don't know what caused that. It's kind of an interesting thing. But that being said, I did make my own Alphabet of Desire back in the day. But I suppose it wasn't all that effective because I don't remember most of them. I remember a few. There's actually a version of one on my wall over somewhere where it can't be seen right now. And that was part of the reason we did the cash cow sigil this week, by the way, was because there was the house maintenance, but then also we had some weirdness. We had a roommate that moved in. Everything seemed great. They seemed happy, told us they were happy here. Everything was going well. And they actually had just finished writing a book for a pack of tarot cards. They seemed like a great fit. And they claimed everything was good. And then the other day, we saw them in the morning. They were making cupcakes. And then they just, like, we went to Nanaimo. So we got off the island and got on a ferry and went to town. And by the time they had come back, they had finished cooking the cupcakes and apparently still in their apron, ran up to their room, gathered all their stuff, and said they were going to Poland and just bailed. So that was a little discombobulating. Like, their room's empty. They didn't leave anything, they didn't leave a mess behind or nothing. But that was wild. That was weird. Said they were happy. And then all of a sudden, off they go. But whatever. They said they were going back to Poland. Again, I'm not going to say their name or anything. I feel like that would be a violation of privacy. But anyways, there's not much need to wait for anybody to show up. Looks like most everybody has shown up. There's a few of the regulars that aren't here yet. I'm not seeing a few of you, but there's enough of you here. We can go ahead and get started, I think. This Czechoslovakian beer is quite good, by the way. Indulge in the elegance of our dark lager, where tradition meets innovation, brewed for those who seek a premium full-bodied lager with a rich, creamy texture and a touch of Czech heritage in every sip. Oh, good. Good. I'm glad you fixed the notification issue. I had met a couple people I thought would be good roommates, and one of them ended up being the liar who lied to me about the cash cow sigil who I mentioned last stream. Yeah. Yeah, we've had some interesting we've had our share of interesting roommates over the last little while ourselves. Some of them we had one leave that recently that I'm really sad they left. And like I said, I'm gonna try not to say anybody's names because I feel like that'd be a violation of privacy. But we had one. I mean, honestly, I can't. It's not fair to say I'm sad that they left because they went to be on their traditional lands and they're going to do an awesome thing. So I'm not sad that they left, but I miss them. They were cool and they were just when you have this large of a house, you need to keep your roommates up, and they were a nice one to have. Having several results with servitors and other manifestation things lately. The cash cow thingy might be part of the reason. Awesome. We've had actually I've been doing that cash cow. We've been doing that push for the cash cow since Saturday, and part of the reason we're doing that is because of the craziness that's been going on here. And we've been had a lot of manifestations, mostly in the realm of things that we need simply showing up. Like we have this pond we're trying to make, and we need a pool liner because we've been trying to make it hold water so many different ways. We had all this bentonite clay, but I guess the sides are too steep. I don't know. It's a mystery. Mm-hmm. There's highly specific things that we needed. The pond liner is a great example. And literally, we were just discussing how much we needed it, and we were going to do something. And one of the other roommates comes out and they're like, "Hey, there's a pond liner on here for $30." We managed to get a pond liner, and if you've ever priced pond liner, 10 by 10 foot square of pond liner, it's worth quite a bit of money. My brother-in-law, who applied to immigrate to the US in the GW Bush era, suddenly got due for his paperwork and interviewed, so it's in process. My husband pulled out money from out of nowhere. Excellent. Yeah, that's the beauty of the cash cow sigil. I mean, sometimes when I push it out, there is something that I need, you know, but then everybody gets involved and we get that web, and it just reaches out and helps everyone that reaches out to help out. It's like the philosophy of the helping hand. If you but reach out your hand to those in need, so shall hands be reach out to you in your time. But it's even better than that because you don't have to wait for a need. You participate in aid by posting the cash cow sigil, and that also aids you as well. It's synergetic, symbiotic. There's another word I'm looking for here, but it's a positive upward spiral. Nice. Very good. Hey, Ricky. Glad to see you here. Okay, so synchronicity. Yes, there's definitely a synchronicity to it. Hey, Romstead. But there's it's not the word I'm looking for. Like when a cycle, positive upward spiral is the best word I can come up with. I know there's another word for it. Kinetic spiral, something. At some point, well, I'll probably remember what it is. If I suddenly blurt it out in the middle of the live stream, we'll be talking about something else completely. Anyways, Liber Knox. Let's start with the beginning. And he's talking about the key again, which I think we've decided we're going to pronounce that key. It probably makes the most sense. And it's got a nice poetry to it if it's pronounced key. Because, your key, the key to the lock. And it's kind of a big symbolism to me. Anyways, he goes more into explaining what the key is and how the self alone is God. I mean, this is very similar to the stuff that I have observed myself, or musical key, indeed, indeed, which also opens up a doorway of sound. The vibration of each musical key has a way that it opens up reality in its one way or another. There's a lot of I'm not a huge fan of the English language, even though it's the only language I speak. That being said, there are a lot of funny little hints and keys in the puns in the English language, like all the different words, places where key is, and then I, it's in the I or I. And there's more. There's a lot of these weird little hints, and they're probably in other languages too. You know, I through my own fault, I only speak English. Little bit of Spanish, enough to get in a fight, ask where the bathroom is, and ironically, because most of the Spanish I learned was it while I was working construction, I can probably talk about most things about a roof still in Spanish, about how to build a roof and stuff like that. I don't know. Been a long time, maybe not. But I don't speak much Spanish at all. And but I suspect that all languages have these little hints, these little clues in the funny puns. Because that's one thing we have to remember above all else. Whatever it is, and I mean, it is like before when I was talking about how God is dreaming and it is not a lucid dream. If there is something attached to all things that we can turn to God, it's probably not fully conscious, but it seems to have a sense of humor. And this, we're getting into the heavily theoretical. I do think there is a flow, there is a connectedness of all things, there's the all thing. And I do think at some level in that all thing, there may be something, but something that large, that complex. If it is self aware, it's self aware in a way that we can't understand, that we will never be able to hold on to or even understand as self awareness. But anyway, I'm getting way off subject, kind of. But at the same time, that is what we're talking about here. And he talks a lot about the idea of indulgence, about actual indulgence. There's some um glorification of decadence in here, and there's nothing wrong with that. To be clear, I'm certainly not bashing down on the idea of experiencing pleasure, and that is what we're here for. I talk about that myself with the F's. I think I've brought it up before. Yeah, we're 18 minutes in. I can pretty much say whatever I want. There's with the F's, you have fighting, fucking, feasting, fishing, fun itself. I very much believe, as well as what they're saying here, that is the purpose of the material realm. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for, is because we are all full things. We are all at the all thing. And we know all the magical, mystical, beautiful stuff. Part of us already knows all those things. Flying, yes. Oh, when I was a kid, I was absolutely convinced I could fly. There was this book called Birds Can Fly, I Can Fly. I read it when I was like 3. One of the first books I actually read, no, 3 or 4. I'm not sure how old I was when I actually started reading. I know it was before kindergarten. But either way, I'd read the book, Birds Can Fly, I Can Fly. And I was convinced that book was real. Man, I tried to jump off of everything. I was constantly running and jumping. I was just completely convinced that if I found the right angle, I was going to fly. And oh man, I jumped off the roof one time into somebody's arms. I'm just lucky they caught me. I was like, I don't know. I was young. I don't remember it though. Could be people making up stories, that one, honestly, because a lot of people like to make up stories about how wild I was. So I think that one might be a bit overblown. But anyways, I even got to the point when I was older in the sleds because I go sledding and I had this sled called the Speed Demon. Oh, it was cool. It was all the like old school thick plastic with the um, levers on the side for steering, and it was just shaped perfect. And I had this theory that if I hit a tree just right, I could hit the tree, launch myself up into the air, and then I'd get that right angle and I'd be able to fly. I did it so often that my dad claims he'd shot me down this big hill and he had to like do all this stuff to get down to me. I don't remember any of that. I do remember the very last time I crashed into a tree on purpose with the intent to fly. I was hanging upside down in a tree, and my dad came up to me and told me if I didn't quit aiming for the goddamn trees, he wasn't going to take me sledding no more, which is, I suppose, reasonable. I was so obsessed with flying as a kid. Oh, so yes, that is definitely one of the F's. But that's what he's talking about here is getting your F's. And seeking pleasure is his invocation of displeasure. If you go too hard into it, like I said, he does do some glorification of that, but that is when we agree with that, I agree with him on that. And must our duties be kept in coexistent separation to retain the power of satisfaction? The small pleasure of the gourmet, semi-digested, overripe, putrefying food have come almost full circle to the consumption. Oh, yeah, I remember that part. Yeah, see, I mean, there is some truth to the idea that if you saturate yourself in something, it loses its potency. So, in order to truly, like he talks about here, like going through times of chastity and then times of sexual exuberance, times of lust. I forget what his exact wording is, but he talks about going from one extreme to the other. And this can definitely lead to exquisite moments. And these are the kind of things that are the gifts to the self. I've talked before about giving offerings to the fuller self, to the all self, I think maybe is the word. I don't know. I feel like higher self is just the wrong word. He talked about it as the genius earlier on, or the a ow, I can't remember his word already. Aegonist or something like that. Aegides. Aegides. Probably why I couldn't remember it. I couldn't. The greater self. This is a good word. This is a good word because it implies better, but it's not really there. It's more just larger, fuller. But the greater has a better context than fuller self. Because fuller self, just to me, I say that and I just keep picturing like, oh, I'm full. I've eaten a bunch of food. That's just, I mean, I suppose satiated, which could actually, there could be a little bit of that in there, but it's not really the thing. Okay, so I do love this bit at the end here where he says Ka is a nascent energy form. No, or Ki, sorry. Ki is a nascent energy form. It has been called the great desire, the life force, or self love. It can be represented by the Atu zero. Now, we talked before about how that's what he's talking about with the Ki, is essentially the higher self, but it's like a smaller portion of the greater self. Author mentions guardian angels too, essentially the same thing as the higher self, depending on the view. Yes, see, but I just don't like that term because higher guardian angel. I mean, at least personally, I cannot think of myself as an angel. Any aspect of me being, because to me, an angel is a created being that was designed to serve a god. And I know that's not the only definition of the word, but that's what I hear. And I yes, and there's the hierarchical connotations of the higher self, which are a bit off-putting. But to me, and that's what an angel is a created being that was made to serve a god, and that's antithetical to my existence, frankly. I mean, people can work with angels. Angel equals servitor, yes. There you go. Yes, I mean, there are the idea of the fallen angels, but then there's this idea of having disobeyed, having sinned, having done something for which we would might seek atonement. Ronin angel, there you go. That's a better. I like that a little better. Because like the fallen angel, I mean, I see it. I get the groove there. It has kind of a. It's it's got a nice taste to it. It's got a real nice aesthetic. But again, there's that idea of having sinned. Yeah, yeah. Azazel. That's someone I haven't been around for a while. There's an interesting character. Okay, so there are some angels I work with. I try. It's been a while since me and Iblis or Azazel have crossed paths. They're definitely an interesting character. And okay, there are angels I have some respect for. Fair enough. Azazel of yesterday is the Baphomet of tomorrow. Indeed. Oh, this beer tastes a little too good. I got to slow down on that. See, I've never actually worked with Samael. The amount of angels I have worked with are very small. And a few of them I worked with before I'd actually fully given up on Christianity. So I've had some positive experiences way back in the day. Shout out to the Book of Enoch. It is a very interesting book. So yeah, I mean, one of these days we'll do a live and just talk about angels because it sounds like we have a lot to talk about there. I mean, I myself, in some ways, I have a lot to say, but some of it I should probably keep to myself. But I also, when I originally started working with Chaos and S1 Sigil, they came at a very particular time in my life where I was had to just given up on Christianity. I felt very betrayed by the whole thing. So when the audience or the horde first came to me, they I want to say presented themselves as demons, but that's not it. That's what I perceive them as. And they're much more than that. They're much more than angels or demons. They're everyone. They're aspects of the all thing, as are we all. But it came to me that way. That's what I perceived because that's what I needed to perceive. That's what drew me. Because, like I say, I felt very betrayed by Christianity. Oh, I have a story about why I hate sweet pickles, but we're not going to get into that. Samael is death and Satan. He is called the father of sorcerers and the seducer of mankind. I love that guy so much. I mean, that's quite the title. Father of sorcerers and seducer of mankind. Speaking of which, we should go ahead and get on to sorcery. Now, he uses sorcery as the idea of using physical. Let's just go ahead and read this. Sorcery is the art of using material bases to effect magical transformations. The advantage of using such material bases is that the power residing in them can be built up over a period. Now, if you've read Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 1, yeah, My mom, she used to have dreams of angels coming in and stealing her memories. And actually, there was some beings. I don't know if they were exactly angels, but there certainly were some beings coming in and preventing her from remembering certain things. And I had to deal with that. I took care of that. I don't know what the beings really were, but I stopped them from coming. And then my mom started having a whole lot more past life memories after that. Some of the most important things she remembered were after that. Anyways, oh, yeah. Okay, so they refer to sorcery mostly for making talisman, amulets, and fetishes. If you've read the Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 1, did I ever pin that? Oh man, I forgot to pin this thing. Place in the group, or you can go and get the PDF for anyone that hasn't read, that wants to read along and doesn't have a copy of the Liber Null with them. Okay, that's in CMU, my Facebook group. You just go to the featured post, and it's right there. I don't think says that it doesn't seem like there's anyone here that doesn't have some access, but it is there for anyone that shows up. Or sometimes this number up here is actually wrong about how many people are actually in here. So, anyways, so sorcery. As I was saying, if you've read the Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 1, I talk about in there about cantrips. Because I mean, basically, to me, what he's talking about here is any spell that works. I mean, I disagree on his definition of sorcery. To me, sorcery is the weaving of fate. I chose the word sorcery and sorcerer for myself because to me it is the most open-ended of all the words. Which has certain connotations, wizard has certain connotations, mage has certain connotations. You know, I could have called myself a chaos mage, coyote. I do like the word coyote. It sounds like coyote, you know, and I've got a lot of respect for most trickster spirits. And even those that I'm not that I'd rather not work with. I have a respect for all trickster spirits. Some I'd rather not have any interaction with because not all trickster spirits are benign. Not all trickster spirits well, have our best interest anywhere in their context, and in fact, some of them would get a real kick out of watching bad things happen to people. So, but it's important to respect all of them in their way, unless you can find a way to kick their fucking ass, because sometimes that works too. That's something that people forget about a lot. Yes, in us witches' homes. Indeed. I'm actually going to be talked about some Onesidin before, actually on one of the lives. I forget. Yeah, we talked about him on one of the lives. I'm beginning to understand what he's doing here this second time, and it has to do with a trickster servitor that will be returning as it's born for the first time fairly soon here. I've talked about him my whole life, said his name many times. Never really realized he was someday going to be a tulpa. He'll be spinning in here backwards and forwards fairly soon. But I'm not going to say the name in public just yet. Anyways, let's continue where we were. Sorcery. I keep getting lost. Every time I go to talk about it, I get distracted. Anyways, I might as well bring up a cop. I might as well bring that up just in case anyone is interested. While I'm gonna just about to talk about it. Let's see. The US version. Hate to be plugging myself so bad, but I am in a position where I kind of need funds at this point. So, in the Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 2, which I just pinned a link for, I talk about cantrips. And yes, I did steal the word from Dungeons and Dragons. But people call them fetishes, and what I make aren't fetishes. What my great grandfather called it was gidge. I'm not sure if he was making a joke or not. Because it sounds a lot like gitchy, which is the word for great, also for cosmic, large. But he also claimed it was an acronym that I'm not going to say. If you can figure out the joke there with the acronym, then good on you. But it's a very racist joke, and I'm just not. I mean, my dad laughs every time I talk about it. You know, some of the best jokes I've heard from about Native Americans came from Native Americans. But I'm still just, it is what it is. I wish I'd said that differently now. Either way, there is an acronym joke there, thing that apparently my great grandfather thought was hilarious. But the word gidge stuck. Now everyone will want to know, yes, and they can try to figure it out, I guess. It's not that bad. I overblew it, but quite frankly, I get the impression that my great grandfather, though he knew a lot, and in some ways obviously a very wise man, was also just, well, that's how I know that wisdom and power do not equate with morality. Dude knew a lot, clearly. But I worry that if I had ever met him, I wouldn't have been willing to take up his assignment to me and try to follow in his footsteps in my way. Well, if I'd ever met him in life. Because as I said before, just because the man died before I was born doesn't mean I never met him. Because that's not how it works with Manitous. You know? Just because the dude died doesn't mean he's gone. But from that side of things, it's easier to deal with the bad parts of who he was. And also, well, my nanny, my grandmother, his daughter, didn't have much good to say about anybody, so she may have been exaggerating to some degree. My dad liked the guy, or he might not have told me that he said that his grandfather said I was next. Anyways, so that's the other reason I choose the word sorcerer, because it's the best. Yes, so you know what I'm talking about. Some people, they die and death's not ends it. Stick around, you know. For a long time, that was very much my plan this time around. Is I was gonna have preparing all this stuff for me to be a ghost after I die, and I'm still not sure that isn't the case if I do die, but things have changed a little. Good. Yeah, sometimes it is the best way to work out your issues. I'll tell you what, my nanny, I mentioned her a little while ago. I always loved that mean old woman. A mean old woman. I loved her. But We worked out quite a bit of our issues while she was alive, but after she died, our relationship never been better because she's one that very much wanted me to make the gourd, like the gourd that she is in. Her bodvi is, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that word right, and I don't like that I use it, but I don't know another word. Anyways, her ancestor shrine, her gourd is it was made before she I made it for her before she died, and she prepared herself to be into it even. But yeah, she's there, and our relationship improved dramatically. I always loved that mean old woman, and she loved me by the end. But I met one of my grandfather's ghosts. I don't think I would have liked him in life. At the time, I thought maybe he was one of my personalities. He is not. This is my great grandfather. And yeah, I mean, I like him when I'm around him. I can feel the I don't know if ferocity is the right word. Evil isn't the right word. Primal primal selfishness. It was there. It was there in him, but he had the knowledge too. You know, he just is one of the it's like dealing with a large predatory beast. It's like dealing with a large predatory beast that have you happen to be the one that can do the things it wants. If you don't, but one that has. Anyways, sorry, I got a little distracted there by something. Yeah, in life, his actual friends called him skis. It would definitely like a well, he's why I also know that just because somebody knows what they're doing doesn't mean they're not out to scam people. They called him skis, and he was just and I mean, even with the stuff that's been passed down to me about him and the knowledge that I've passed, there was obviously a lot of trickery and deception involved in a lot of what he did. And he knew not just magic, but illusion. Like he had his stage where he did I guess you call them powwows. He did his rituals. He had the lights set up in a certain way with a stage and a concrete done a certain way so that it would look like he was dancing on water. Yeah, I was wondering why you deleted the message. That's what distracted me because I was able to then read it. I was like, what would they have possibly said that got deleted? Okay, that's why I paused there because I paused and read. That. I was like, but what? Fair enough. Here, I'll go ahead and read it out for them. Most of the stuff my friend does, I think most human beings could never handle. They're too easily shocked, spooked, and he pranked me many times before I figured out it was him. That ghosts. I don't understand why everyone's so afraid in the ghosts. I Why? Startling. Ghosts have startled the crap out of me many times. My grandmother's house was haunted when I was a kid. And I suppose when I was real little, it scared me. Yeah, I tried to restore it too. I couldn't. Once I read it, I figured like you'd done it on accident somehow, and I tried to fix it, but I couldn't figure out how. But anyway, I don't understand the fear of ghosts. What is a ghost? It's a ghost. People are far scarier than ghosts. A ghost is just a person without a body. And I mean, you've really got to have some understanding of the astral plane and all kinds of different skills if you're going to be able to harm anybody at all without a body. It's quite the trick. The percentage of ghosts that could actually harm someone would be incredibly small. Um, oh, I keep getting distracted from the thing we was talking about and why my book is even up there. Yeah, normies get so spooked over stuff like moving papers around. Yeah. Yeah, just the smallest things. People, it's a ghost as soon as they figure out it's a ghost. I mean, I can understand. Yeah, that makes sense, Max. That makes sense. I've I've experienced I have mine comes and goes. Like we kind of integrated at one point and we haven't ever really come back after the last integration. There's a lot less voices in my head than there used to be. But there's still stuff and all the different servitors I've created and things. But anyways, I keep forgetting to talk about the thing about with my book and sorcery. We keep getting off track. We are we want to get to the book club. Not that I'm complaining about everybody talking. We're having a great time. Just trying to get myself back into what I was trying to say here. Good, good. It was totally an accident. There certainly wasn't intended to offend you in any way. Okay, so what he calls sorcery in here, obviously, I deeply disagree with. No, it certainly isn't. It's a valuable tool. Those of us that have plurality, you know, two souls. Okay, we'll get back to the book part. I got to talk about this now that I've brought it up. A person with two souls. This is a common topic in Native American traditions. And it often gets put on with the idea of people that are trans. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of the people that are two souls are trans, but that is not the defining characteristic of what it is. Yeah. It's a body that there are two people inside of. That's what it means to be two souls, to be two souls. Usually when you hear about two souls, it's people that are trans. And I don't mean to, I certainly don't mean to, ins- just because someone is trans does not mean they're two souls. Yeah. That does make them in a special position. Now, I can only speak for what I have been told. Yeah. The way it was passed down to me. Just because someone is trans does not make them a two souls. It does make them someone you are to respect, someone that is in a special position within the mysteries. Because the word Manitou that I talked about just a little while ago, it is in everything. Manitou is in everything. That spirit is in everything. There is mystery. There is sorcerous power. There is I don't have an English word for what I'm trying to say here, but it's there, right? And oh man, I got way off track. I was on the edge of something there and I lost it. I lost it right there. The heck was I saying? Almost there. Something important. Okay, the Manitou. and connected to sorcery, and it's in there, and it's in everything. Right. I'll have to watch the live myself and see if I can pick back up on it. Oh yes, and the two souls. Okay, so in the two souls is literally someone that has two souls in one body. And most of the time when this happens, they are two souls of different genders. Hence the connection. Yes, it's like twins, but with one person. And most of the time, these people do tend to be some sort of trans. Therefore, people have come to associate the two together. But yes, and people that are trans, even in and of themselves, even if they aren't two souls, still did occupy a particular position within the way things work because they are in a position where there's a mismatch. Yeah. I mean, nowadays we do our best to fix that mismatch, and I'm fine with that too. I'm not saying anything wrong with any of these things, but that's what it was. That was what made them so that they were an important thing because they were significant. They were identifiable because of a certain characteristic. Yeah, I mean, kind of, but for me, polarity has always been very deeply disabling. I suspect it always will be in my case, but I wouldn't want to be a singlet. I love myself the way I am as a DID system personally. Yeah, I did eventually decide that I had to try and absorb all the voices in as much as possible. I can remember one case where I was actually out bow hunting and I'm following these tracks. And I got one guy with a theory about what's going on with the tracks, and another guy with another theory over here, and another guy with a theory over here, and all these people in my head debating or where the heck this deer had gone and what was going on and where the deer was. And then it got so bad that right there in the quiet woods in the middle of nowhere, I just stood up and said, "Everybody, shut the hell up!" Which, of course, scared any animals in the area away. And that's when I was like, "All right, something's got to be done." Because I can see how it can be an issue. I mean, especially, I mean, I don't know how. It seems like your situation is a little bit different than mine because there is, my primary personality, whatever you want to call it, what person talking right now is completely dominant. I missed something that you said. Let me back up just a little. For me, my plurality has always, no, that's not the one. I'm trans myself, although I have well over two personalities slash headmates in my system. Neither bipolar nor the outdated split personality. My disability is called dissociative identity disorder. It comes exclusively from early childhood trauma. It's a trauma-based condition. See, now I think that's the difference. Is I didn't. I mean, parts of my life have been hard, but I didn't get any kind of shattering trauma. I think that's probably the main difference. I don't know. I don't know, but I have a primary personality that is able to make pieces. It's very easy for me to make a wearable tulpa or a servitor that is literally just a piece of me. That I like, all right, this little piece of me is going to go over and do this. But if I let it get too jumbled up, I'll get moments like that one I was talking about when I was younger, where all these different people are in my head with all these different opinions. But I'm able to like, that's it. You guys are shutting up. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what, I don't know your trauma, but um I think therein lies the difference because my father did get a shattering trauma and like he doesn't admit to his, but I know it's there because I've seen him. I've seen the things he goes through. Anyways, um, back to the thing. Back to let's finally get back to the thing I've been trying to say and why I've got my book uh pinned up there like in this um like in a limbo for a plug for the book. I hate plugging stuff and I keep okay, anyways. Um in the book, I talk about what he's talking about here with sorcery. I talk about it as cantrips, which yes, I did steal the word from Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a good word for it. Um, a cantrip is anything. Well, really, any talking about anything that of Liber Nox has been the most interesting book in the Libel series so far, in my opinion. Absolutely, I agree, and I. That's part of the reason when I thought that I was still quite a bit more to go. I was like, well, we'll go ahead and divide this one into two. Okay, and we still haven't even got to the alphabet of desire. We still might wind up by guiding this into two because we're still on just sorcery and we've been on for an hour. Okay. But yeah, intent, anything like I talk about in the Sorcerer's Shadow, Volume 1, which is the one I'm talking about, which is the book I have pinned there. I call these things a cantrip. But really, he seems to be talking about anything that relies on the intent, form, charge, containment model, which for me is any spell that you do more than once. Yeah, like with a sigil, especially the ones you forget, you release at the end. You make you get an intent, you use the intent to create a form, you then charge that form, and you release it. And boom, intent, form, charge, release. With these ones, with what he's referring to as sorcery here, we're going intent, form, charge, containment. And then that containment creates a field. And that is very much how it works in the way that I see it as well. You put the sigil of your intent onto the object and you perpetually charge the object. This is a great thing for protection spells, especially like if you're going to wear a necklace, you that you can take it on, take it off every night, and then every morning when you put it on, repeat the protection spell, doubling the charge, creating it farther. And you certainly, in these cases, do not want to forget about the intent. You want to keep remembering every day. This necklace keeps me safe from whatever whatever it is that it keeps you safe from. And you don't have to take it off. Like I never take these necklaces off. I feel weird without my necklaces on. But um that ceremony can give you an like if you're taking it off every night and putting it back on, that ceremony can give you a chance to remember these things. I just play with them a lot. And the feeling of them there reminds me of what they're there for. And as much as I probably should have more protection spells, none of these are directly protection. They're more about, I mean, yeah, they are because especially the key because it's about keeping things on my will. So defense through good offense, essentially, you know, and protecting my will and making it like essentially just a bad idea for things to try have any intent to harm me. Anything that might harm me is a it's bad luck. It's bad luck to have ill intent towards me. I feel like there's a better way of phrasing that. But anyways, that's what he's talking about with sorcery. Is really anything that's on that intent, form, charge, containment model. And with this kind of thing, I really like repetition of the intent over and over again. This is where like a lot of your candle magic comes in, right? The stuff where you light it, repeat an intent, where you light the candle, repeat an intent, and put the candle out, and then light it and repeat the intent every day. Some of these with jar candles, you don't put it out, you just leave it lit, but still go up to it and repeat the statement of intent every day. So you look into the candle, and again, you're certainly not forgetting it in these cases. You have the ones where like then you have the image of the self candle and the image of the thing you want, and every day you light them and move them forward and repeat the thing. That's what he's talking about here. Any of that kind of stuff, that's all sorcery. I mean, he goes a little more into it, and it's got this idea about the dark mirror. I feel like I'm simplifying it. He talks about some other stuff here. I went a little off on one bit, I think. The form and composition of the material base should be suggestive of the desired effect, which is interesting because he said the opposite about sigil work, if I recall correctly. I think I remember going off about it. I'm pretty sure I talked about how, to me, a sigil should look like its intent. And he was saying how it shouldn't. And now here with this, I guess that's his differentiation between containment and release. Yeah. If it's a release sigil, it makes it easier for him to release it if it doesn't look like what it intends. If he has to forget about it in order to be able to release it fully. Now, I think the problem we were having an understanding that is that we've gone beyond that now. We have learned to release without forgetting. You know, we can only see so far because we are standing on the shoulders of giants. I don't know. We're standing on the shoulders of others, anyways. Okay, let's see here. What am I doing? I was thinking there was somewhere I was supposed to click on the thing to like progress it, so I must be needing to get on to the next part. Instruments of sorcery also find their uses in the mantic art. Most divinatory tools serve only to receive impressions from the operator's magical perception. See, now that I think I talked about that before in the divination part, but I disagree. To me, the key to divination is learning to understand what your tools are saying. But also, it isn't about intuition so much as putting your tools into the flow of what it is you're trying to divine. Whatever it is that you're trying to understand, you need to get into that thread, into that line of fate. And that is why distractions, that's why things where you have your opinion about what is going to happen or anything like that can mess it up because then you're not properly linking with the fate. It can cause bias in what it is you think the things your tools are saying. But if you can learn to communicate properly with your tools, you're gonna be able to read the sentence that your runes have spelled out for you, right? Sometimes better than others. I mean, it's never perfect, right? But there is a communication there. So learning to understand properly what your tools are saying, learning to get beyond seeing symbols into seeing what yours. Hello. Um okay. So, I got lost first. I got lost again. Um where was we? Divination, getting into the flow of the thing, and that is where most of this stuff about being having too much opinion about it actually throws things off. Yeah, it can totally be biased in how you read things if you haven't learned how to communicate properly with your tools, and that is a vital essence. But there is also, and most importantly, because if you don't get this part right, now you're just looking at the rune's opinion on. Yeah, Yes, because, that's part of what I'm getting at. When it's stress, and this is also why, like, I often have trouble reading about my own love life, is because there's you have opinions, you have thoughts, you have things on it that are pressing on to the flow, keeping you from properly linking to the um, flow of information and fate that are actually connected to the moment you were trying to divine. So, this is the moment where we have to develop detachment. This is the moment where, as you're shuffling your cards, if you're doing the tarot, where we do need to forget, ask the question, but let yourself forget while you're doing whatever it is that you sort with the cards instead of pushing on it, because you've got too much other stuff in your head, too many concerns about, oh, what if this or what if that, and I want this, I want that, and that's going through your mind while you're shuffling the cards, and that's keeping you from linking to the actual thing, because you're just linking to your own stress, you're just linking to your own hopes and fears, and that's not what we're trying to ask about. Yeah. So what you do, that's one of the moments where you want to blank out. Let yourself get that one suggestion of what you're looking for, and then keep shuffling or shaking your bag, whichever thing that you do, until you just out. And then you can finally get into that moment and shuffle the cards in the correct sequence to align with the thread of fate that you're trying to ask about. And I hope that made sense. I think it did. Yes, that was very odd. Oh, you're welcome, Max. I've commented, probably deleted because it's so emotionally charged and pure, especially here on YouTube. But I wanted to pop in and acknowledge. Huh. All right. Well, whatever. Hope they got something out of it. They say they did. Man, this one was good. These 12 category 12 brewing company. Just about everything I've had from them I've enjoyed. I think they're fairly local though. Don't know why that reminded me, but Uncle Ian. Remember, Felix, the other day I was trying to remember what the name of the great uncle was. Or I guess it would have been great great uncle, because it was my great grandfather's brother, whom I actually did meet. And he kept telling me about Fuckerbird. And I was a little boy, and I can't remember much of the stuff he said about Fuckerbird because I couldn't figure out why he was swearing at me. But he wasn't saying Fuckerbird. He was drunk, and he was saying Thunderbird. And it took me till like 2 years ago to even figure that out. But I'm like, I'm like 6 years old, and there's this dude. And some of the stuff he's telling me is amazing and interesting, but then every once in a while he just starts swearing at me about Fuckerbird. And I'm like, what? Why is this old man swearing at me? He was saying Thunderbird, for fuck's sake. Yeah, and that's the guy's name. Ian. Uncle Ian. There's some stories about him. I think I have the name right this time. To ask my dad. I was a little boy, and people trying to tell me about deep magic. I'm like 4 years old. What the hell? I absorbed what I could. Hmm. Am I drunker than I think? I just spilled that beer all over my face. Let's try that again. I don't think I'm drunk. Anyways, um, Uncle Ian, Fuckerbird, definitely off track of where we were at in the book. Ah, the double. I think that was part of the reason I started thinking about this idea of the two souls. Because, and this isn't just something that someone who was born with two souls can do, but it is an area where we had the um what's the word I'm looking for? It's an area where someone with two souls has an advantage. Okay, no, yeah, he's just kind of. I got to read over this again real quick before I can have much of an opinion. I'll get a drink when I go to the only gay bar in my city tomorrow. God sends me more friends and connections would be. Gods send me more friends and connections would be nice. Hmm. I can certainly understand that, Max. I grew up in Utah. I grew up in Utah in the 90s. Oh, man. That's an odd twist, Tom, with everything else I talk about. And then you hear that I tell you I grew up in Utah in the 90s. Okay. Oh, yeah. Because, well, he's just talking about really about enhancing the astral form here, right? Is there something I forgot? Let me just kind of look over this for a second. I hate to look over in the middle of the live. I just recently read it. A portion of the etheric force may even be left inside the opponent. Oh. I mean, there's definitely something there, but now he's talking about the things that I usually associate with the kind of word Ki is. The double is described in all magical traditions from ancient shamanism through the Egyptian Ka and the key of occult martial arts to the idea. Okay, so he's not pronouncing us, intending for us to pronounce the key IA as, unless he's trying to put a like these two words together. The double is described in all magical traditions from ancient shamanism through the Egyptian Ka and the key of occult martial arts to the ideas of the solar ghosts in the modern occult concept of the astral body. It's mostly common, seen, or experienced when the physical body passes close to death. So I mean, he's kind of talking about the soul here, I suppose. And he talks later about shaping the soul, what I would call soul shifting. Yeah, he talks about changing the astral form, which that's what he's talking about here for the most part. We'll get into that idea of the two souls in relation to this in a moment because it's still a thing. But let's see where. Hmm. Yeah, this whole double thing. I don't know why he would even. Honestly, I don't know why he uses the word the double, and even in returning back to it, it immediately made me want to talk about. Yeah, yeah, like qigong, right? Or tai chi, even. And that's what he's talking about here. So why is he calling? I don't understand why he's calling it a double. Because to me, a double, it would be a copy of the self. We'll get into that with the two souls and what the Hungary or the Magyar called the Taltos and all that in just a moment here, because I have to bring it up in relation to this. I already talked about two souls. We might as well go a little farther with that whole thing. But what am I getting at? Where am I going with this? Yeah. So what he's talking about then is having a cohesive astral form. That's all we're talking about here. And this is one of the things that, in my opinion, here we go again, is one of the um, primary advantages of having a personal sigil. Having a sigil that is connected to your form, having something that connects everything. And even in here, he talks about, ways to use this double or this cohesiveness of a personal form as the best way to carry on memory from one life into the next. Yeah, that's where we're going here. That's what he's talking about. And that would be the most important part of this. But again, a cohesive astral form can be created with a personal sigil. This is something I can't recommend enough. It is something that you're going to wind up having at some point in your evolution. In my opinion, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But this is one of them things that to me seems an inevitability. It seems like everyone, once they eventually become part of the audience, has some kind of symbol that they are essentially maintaining their existence through. Maintaining isn't, it's the right word, but it's not, that hasn't, as a concept of like feeding, of it needing for them to be something there, maintaining the shape of. Hmm. Any advice for someone looking to stop reincarnating as human? Depends on what you mean. I mean, to put it insanely brutally, uh, not too long from now might not be too bad of a time to stop being a two legs, because less humans, and it seems like things are going to get a little crazy here soon, makes that kind of life easier. Stop reincarnating as a human. I mean, there are ways. In the books, in the book here, is the thing talks about supposedly if you the thing you were going to be reincarnated is the thing you act the most like. But I do believe, especially through using the S1 sigil, which if you look on my thing on my YouTube channel, you'll see all this stuff about the S1 project. That is certainly a way through the S1 sigil that you can reincarnate outside of this particular material reality in your next life. Yeah. See, that's part of what I was gonna get at is I think you have too many from my experience of what you've said, I think you have a lot of things that are gonna keep you connected to this particular reality. So, with that being the case, yeah, I mean, you can go into Yes, the S1 sigil is also it's where where I'm able to connect with the audience and where you might be able to connect with them as well, but it is also a exit point. Through the S1 sigil, we can go back towards the all thing and get far enough out of here that we can get out of this particular reality. Because as I said before, we're in a bit of a hostage situation here. Like we're in the aftermath of a hostage situation, but there was an issue. There was a problem. There was a being essentially trying to make this reality as boring as possible so that we would ignore um potent. S1 is that potent. The S1 is a marker of a location. It marks a particular place on the edge of the nothing where we have the full potential to create dream platforms, but also at the edge of the nothing, that is where the undefined and the unseen potential can be tapped. We were. And we have done our best to fix that. There was a being that had a vested interest in this aspect of everyone's perception being pushed either into believing that there was something that they were completely in servitude to, or else becoming so bored and complacent or traumatized to the point of just blanking out that they allowed the flow to continue and pushing all that into one being. Because if they can get enough power of themselves in one being, they can. I mean, all beings get to the audience, all beings get to the all thing. But with that amount of power, they wanted to affect the all thing with their individual personality. And so they tried to inflate themselves to enthrall by enthralling aspects of other beings' perceptions from this reality. And so we eliminated them from that seat because such things are illegal. They do not groove, and that is the one law of the universe is thou shalt groove. And after that was done, we were able to punch through and create a larger connection between this reality and what and the actual audience who I was contacting with, who I was able to contact on the edge of the nothing in the spot that I marked with the S1 sigil. That is a very good theory, Griffin. Like you know, Griffin. I like it. At the moment of my natural death, I'll be summoning up my original memories and redirecting myself to my origin point before I got snookered into this place. Figure that way I could just orient myself to end up there since time is not actually linear. It makes sense. It makes sense. If for any reason if you, when you find yourself in that position, if you feel stuck, the S1, if you visualize the S1 sigil, it can pull you to the edge of the nothing as well. But either way, whether we're gonna leave this reality and be like, man, we're out of this situation, back to places where there wasn't somebody trying to make things more interesting, trying to make things dull and boring so that we will just stop paying attention and allow ourselves to be contained and pacified, then we yeah, or feel acceptable to Bale. But either way, you get to the S1 sigil, at the edge of the nothing. It's a place where no harm is possible. And once you're clear there, if you want to be born back into this reality, ask something else. This would be that would be the point to do that from as well. Yeah. Now, there are, and I know this is a bizarre, strange absurdity. As a blue butterfly or a blue bee. I mean, why not? I don't remember. I don't recall ever being an insect. That being said, I've seen enough um evidence of self-awareness in certain bugs that I'm pretty sure somebody's in some of those bugs. And everybody's, everything has somebody in it. But yeah, I don't know. That's one I wonder about sometimes. Like some beings, some creatures, you can look at them and you can see there's somebody in there. Especially most mammals or birds. Well, most things really. There's somebody in there. There's a few things that it seems like, I don't know. It makes it hard to understand. It's an interesting thing to me. Like, yes, you did buy a beehive today. Today is International Bee Day. Oh, that's right. And Felix bought a beehive today. They are pretty cool. They are pretty cool. Salamanders are interesting. I used to catch salamanders from up in the Uinta Mountains and keep them as pets. Which, I mean, I kept them fairly well, I suppose. So, but yeah, like some things have a little less apparent. There's someone in there than other things. Like bees, in particular, I feel like that hive mind. Feel like maybe they're like the opposite of a two souls or a multiplicity or a plurality, in that there's one mind over multiple bodies. Like I think if you were to reincarnate as a bee, you'd probably wind up reincarnating as a beehive. You see what I'm saying? Like there'd be a part of you in each one, like with the way my servitor is in the servitor tanks. It's part of each one of the bees, or each one of the. Neither one of them tanks have much in them, but it's a part of each one of the things in them. And I suspect bees are probably the same way. I've seen indication that some flocks of birds are that way. I don't know for sure, but I know it's not that way with crows and ravens, because you can see the shamans amongst crows. I haven't seen a raven with it yet, but they all have kind of a purpleness to them. But there are certain crows, when you watch a whole murder of crows, you'll sometimes see not with your eyes, but see it anyways. Yeah, seeing with your eyes open. I have a video talking about that. Like you see the energy of this blue or purple diamond in the center of a crow's chest. He's one of their shamans, one of their manitous. He's one of their whatever the heck. I don't know. I mean, that was weird, but he's one of their magic users. He's one of their spiritual people. Yeah, I hope I was making sense. I myself, I'm not saying I want to be, but with the way the world is going, The only beings I see benefiting from the current state of affairs are squids and octopi. So I'm actually a bit concerned I'm gonna have to reincarnate as a cephalopod. Because there's all kinds of cephalopods that are actually benefiting from the warmer waters, and some of them are highly intelligent, like cuttlefish and octopus. So I'm not saying I necessarily want to, but I'm concerned that I'm going to wind up having to reincarnate as a cephalopod of some kind. I like the thumbs, quite frankly. This is the thing. This right here. And yeah, obviously I am getting a bit drunk because I'm talking about thumbs. But that's the reason. This is it right here. Human beings have thumbs. And that makes it so I can pick things up and do stuff and manipulate objects. And this is the main reason I keep coming back as a human. So the only thing I could imagine if the humans have gotten so whacked out that, man, who would want to be one of those pink monkeys? Cephalopods, like an octopus or a cuttlefish, something like that. Indeed. Indeed. Okay, so I definitely need to slow down on the beers. I'm getting there out to the point I'm talking about thumbs. Okay, so the double, and I was going to talk about the bit about the two souls there as well. In that, um, let's see. Oh yes, so this is one of the advantage of the two souls, and I fall into this category myself. There are times when I can be in a trance, but there's still a soul in my body to answer questions. I can be totally out there going off, wandering around wild, in some cases because I needed to, actually having a conversation. I mean, I'm not going to be a great conversationalist because even the soul that's in the body is distracted by being aware of what the soul that isn't in the body is doing. But this isn't just something that, I'm like talking about because of the Taltos and the concept of the two souls in the way that I was taught. It's This is a common thing in magic, the idea of the soul double in the idea of an actual second being that is part of you. It's an extension of you that can go out and do while you were dreaming. And that's suppose where he's gotten that connection there is because while you're dreaming. But in order to fully have this concept as the double, then one should be able to be in two places at once. Yeah. Should be able to exist in two worlds at the same time. And that's where the whole idea of the two souls comes in. And it isn't always even that there's necessarily more than one personality, it's that the soul becomes large enough. So we can learn to create this sort of thing. We can learn to create this ability by expansion of the soul, by expanding our ability to perceive and widening our lens. Yes, octopi are only in the water. This is true. And that's why I say I'm concerned. Because, I mean, no, there's more water than land, but at least at the moment, I'm used to being on land. I have no memories of being an aquatic being. So the whole thing would be an entirely new process for me. Um, at this point, though, I am going to have to take an intermission. Be back in just a moment. Okay, I'm back. Wearable tulpas. The B movie. One of our roommates wanted to watch that today. I'm having a hard time I have had having the hardest time remembering it. I'm pretty sure I've seen it, but one of our roommates brought it up, and I was like, "Cool," but I know I've seen it. What is it about? There's a couple different movies with bees. My brain will not bring the right one to mind. Okay. Yes, the wearable tulpa. It could be a version of this, but it's like more like on the edge of the um concept of a familiar. Yeah, it is more very well. Wearable tulpa is you putting on a suit, is you putting on a taking on a role. Oh, how much were we to have read by next time? Hold on a second. Yeah. Whereas the double in the way that I'm talking about is more an extension of the self. It's like making a piece of you that goes out and does things while you are still in your body. And if we have plurality, that makes this easier to do. So there's already more than one of us in there. Well, maybe I don't know. I may be speaking. I'm speaking from my own experience in there, but also the one that goes out and does those things is more connected to me than some of the voices that used to be there were, because it's less that I am dominant over them. So that's a weird way to put it. Now that I've said that word a couple times, I'm like, but they're just there's small things that I can turn on or off. And there's things like this that are different. And I think my servitor sigil, as it spins backwards and forth again, to about to be returning for its first incarnation, is something along the lines of what I'm talking about. But given, anyways, some of my system can be off doing things while others of us are here, and others of me have to be within my body nearly 24/7, it seems like. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I had a close friend in high school who unfortunately, well, her sanity didn't stay intact long term. Um, but that's how things were with her. She just she never quite grasped the concept that they didn't have their own bodies, the person I'm talking about. I don't really want to get into that, but we had a lot of conversations on how things went with her. I suppose at this point I should say them in the I don't know. That was high school. Anyways, I'm gonna leave that where it is. But they could do that same thing. Like they'd be telling me about what this one had done while they were in class, stuff like that. Okay, so transmorgification. Having a trouble remembering what that one was even about. Oh, we haven't even got to the alphabet of desire. Okay, transmorgification, the metamorphosis to black magical consciousness. I have trouble remembering what this one was even about, honestly. Nothing is more important than anything else, and anything he does is only a gesture. He's thus free to do anything. Okay, this was another one of them ones where you're talking about pushing yourself back and forth with extremes. The abandonment of comfort, conventionality, security, and safety for competition, combat, extremes, and adversity are needed to produce higher resolutions and personal evolution. An air of desperation is required in the life lived close to the edge. Um, I feel like a lot of us have experienced that simply by trying to exist. That's one of these things where I'm reading this, and one thing I'm realizing is this is very much written from a neurotypical perspective. And I feel like most of the people that continue to follow my channel are probably neurodivergent. So this is one of them things where he's talking about having to confront the mind, having to look at your brain and go, "Hey, you're kind of nuts." As in talking to your brain. Like to me, my brain, by the way, is a very separate being from me. My brain is like it's like Clippy. Yeah, it's this thing that tells me what's going on. It's a computer that I work with, and it's got programs and functions, but it's not me. I had to confront my brain and figure out how to make it work because it wasn't able to operate in the society that I was born into, right? I had to figure out how to make it be able to sit in a classroom all day, how to make it be able to behave the way that it was supposed to. I had to confront myself and evaluate myself constantly. This was how I became high functioning. Yeah, exactly. A lot of I'm just kidding. I'm literally quoting you with exactly even exactly. A lot of marginalized people have already been forced to live our lives on the edge and against our will. Yeah, I mean, I especially imagine anyone who's trans has really already confronted this. This is you've already experienced this idea of my personality doesn't fit what society says I am. And I have to fight to be who I am, to experience myself. I mean, I've never really considered myself trans, but I've certainly experienced this people wanting me to be a thing that I'm literally not capable of being. But see, then there's like some super dramatic stuff here. The axe of the black musician will bind him to earth forever. If he be fearful of his ability to find his way back to his previous occult learning, he may strongly visualize the sigil of chaos shown in figure 7 at his death. So that, oh yeah, that last little bit there about like it's a chaos star, you know? And yes, Black Griffin, in artists, in order to understand artistry, must have confronted this. This is I mean, to me, this is what makes the difference between whether a human is self-aware or not. Oh, I done said it. I don't mean to denigrate all neurotypicals. Many neurotypicals have faced themselves and looked in the mirror once or twice. And that, yeah. Anyways, that's something I try to keep myself from. The neurotypicals are as okay as they can be. Okay. So yeah, this is just I mean, but it is important. And I suppose if you've never had to confront that moment, and I think in this next little bit, somewhere he starts talking about looking in the mirror. Is it in here? Is this bit about we're terrified that we're in neither heaven nor hell, so we stay paralyzed, which I don't know. I mean, I did have philosopher and scientists and people hate me for being authentic in these ways, bullied a lot. Oh yeah, that's the way it is. That is the way it is. I remember getting picked on for using big words when I was a kid, and I didn't even really catch on to that's what it was until someone in high school literally like role played with me how to have a conversation with someone my own age. And unfortunately, that person had some of their own ulterior motives, but they did me a big favor in some ways in teaching me how to have conversations. At this point, I regret having dumbed down my speech because once we'd gotten past high school, it would have been a useful thing still. I don't know. Imagine it made me sound really pompous, like that every word I said was like a three-syllable freaking word. you know, my cousins used to call me the walking encyclopedia when I was a kid. Anyways, um, I feel like I'm probably missing something important in this transmorgification bit, but I don't have an answer for that yet. Um, Theoretically, we're going to be reading all of Liber AOM next time, which would be the yeah 95 to 103. We can definitely read all of Liber AOM next time. Liber AOM AOM. I don't know, however that's intended to be pronounced. There's some fun stuff there, a lot to talk about, but there is it's short, so we can definitely read it all. I haven't even got to the we still haven't gotten to the alphabet of desire though. Okay, so the next thing was ecstasy, and then like I said, we're just gonna since I pretty much did read all of Liber Nox, we're just gonna read the last part together and discuss it. Yes, that is the last book in the Liber Null series. If we want, we can pick up with Psychonaut because it's going to be right there in the same PDF. We'll talk about that at the end of next week. We'll talk about that at the end of next week. What we want to read next, we could go on with the Psychonaut, which would be the easiest thing to do, or um, I have a book on spiritual anarchy that I just picked up that I part of the reason I forgot to read all this week was because I read like I got sucked into something else. It's a pretty good book so far. I mean, maybe we could discuss that, but it's not. It was like spiritual anarchy and occultism. But we'll probably just continue on to the Psychonaut since we already have it, and there is some good stuff in the Psychonaut. It's handy. Anyways, so the next one is ecstasy, being a resume of the Quadrilis Sexualis, a series of somatic trances involving death postures and rites of Thanateros, the science and art of sacred alignments between the magical will and certain forms of Gnostic exaltation, are shown in Figure 8. Look in the dragon position, hands flat on thighs, spine erect. The initiate stares fixedly at the image of his own eyes. Oh, here we are. I don't know why you gotta put yourself on your hands and knees, but he does get here talking about looking into your own eyes in the mirror, which is something that I very much suggest. Gazing at his own eyes. I'm just going to go ahead and switch it to there. 'Cause gazing at their own eyes, the initiate stops thinking. No amount of effort in the usual sense will avail. And see, he puts all this, gets into all this dramatic. It's the it's just called Psychonaut. It's a little bit different. It's different than the Psychonaut's Field Manual, which is another book by Peter Carroll. But the Psychonaut, from what I recall, does have some pretty good stuff in it. And that same PDF that I've got there that I put has the Psychonaut in it. And most copies of the Liber Null continue on to the Psychonaut. Like they're in the same book here. So it'd be like pretty much stopping halfway through the book if we didn't do Psychonaut next. So we probably will just continue on with that unless somebody objects strongly and or I come up with something even better. Because I'm getting a little tired of Peter Carroll. I remember that happening the first time I read these books, but we'll see. It's literally just called Psychonaut. Libernal and Psychonaut. Okay. So, anyways, um, this gazing into the eyes, and it gets into the ecstatic states here. We've kind of talked about this before. This idea of the ecstasy of allowing yourself into these states. That's what I talked about with it before was that when we go into the ecstatic states, we talked about it in Liber Lux, I believe it was. It's allowing yourself. And he gets into all this crazy stuff about it is the hardest thing to simply stop thinking. Don't just stop thinking. You can't, right? You're fighting an uphill battle. Just ignore your thoughts. Look into the mirror. Get yourself down on your hands and knees in the dragon position if you want, but just lock eyes with the mirror and look into your eyes. Gaze. Allow yourself in. Just into your own eyes. There's a lot to be found from this position. For me, this is a way to connect with the greater self. Yeah, I think I know the book you're talking about by Arch Trader Blue Fluke. But and I started thinking of a different one as well. But this is just Psychonaut, and it should be if it's not in any copy. Most copies of the Libernal has Psychonaut as well, and it's definitely in the PDF. So we'll probably just keep going till the end of this book, and that'll give us a little more time to come up with something better. I mean, at some point we'll probably go through my book, but we're not certain. We're certainly not just going to jump right to Sorcerer's Shadow because that feels very egotistical to just jump right to my own book and pluggy. So we're going to talk about finish this one. We'll do a couple more. Yeah, I'm thinking I know the book you're talking about. I'm pretty sure, but I can't bring it up in my head. Like the file's not accessing. Remember I talked about my brain being a computer. I mean, there's more to it than that. There's the internal mental plane and all that stuff inside there, but my point there was that my brain is an actual voice. My brain tells me things like a computer would. And I forget why I was talking about that. But anyways, the pinnacle of excitation and the cave of absolute quiescence are the same place magically and psychologically. This is the same thing he was talking about before about about the inhibitive and ecstatic states in Liber Lux. It's really doesn't add a lot here except for the images here that wind up coming up in the alphabet of desire. What we're going to get to in just a second. Yeah, we're almost there finally. We're I named this one Alphabet of Desire. We're 2 hours in and we still haven't gotten to it. But Oh, this beer is the Irish Stout that I've been drinking on quite a few of the lives recently. Very good. Highly recommend anything so far that I've had from this. That was their name again. Category 12 Brewing Company. Of course, I'm in British Columbia. So outside of British Columbia, I don't know if they're available. Oh, it's also number 69, this particular beer. Very nice. Okay, so we got some images here about the autoerotic Congress, normal Congress, which I guess he's talking about masturbation there, autoerotic Congress. Stands on tiptoe, eyes closed with arms locked behind them, neck stretched and back arched, and whole body straining to the limit. Yeah. Yeah, he just a lot of this stuff isn't things that I feel is necessary. He's pushing yourselves to extremes again. Some aspects of Tantra, absolutely. But that bit about looking yourself in the eyes, you can really get out there with all kinds of things. This is actually, from in my opinion, one of the best forms of astral projection. One of the easiest forms of astral projection is to look oneself in the eyes in a regular mirror and just trance out, like essentially mesmerize oneself through the eyes. Just look into your eyes from both sides, and then eventually it all blurs out. And then for the safety of your eyes, it's probably best to close your eyes when you can. By then, you're going, you're out. But he's talking about achieving ecstasy through this, or else by standing on your tippy toes with your arms behind your back until you pass out, essentially. Which, yeah, there's that. That's what he said there. Um, I do have to do another intermission now. Another bookmark right here. I've been drinking the beers. Back in just a moment. Okay, I'm back. Yes, mirror as a portal. That's exactly. And there's a lot of ways you can take into that, but that's really not what he's getting at all here, right? He's talking about using that to produce a state of ecstasy. I feel like, honestly, I mean, maybe I've never done it on my hands and knees. Maybe getting yourself into that posture does something for you. Maybe you could do it like Silence of the Lambs style. That might get you spinning depending on what it is you're into. I mean, yeah, right. So, um, where was we? Just on a bit about ecstasy, and I think this is where he actually talks about going in to the celibacy and then points of intense sexual activity. Erotocomatose lucidity is a variation of this form of congress in which the desire is to reach the borderland state between consciousness and unconsciousness through which the subconscious images and delivery impressions flow. The sexuality is stimulated again and again, and if need be, again and again and again and again and again until the consciousness slips into the shadow world. Hmm. I mean, I have definitely blissed out before. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, there is a point of ecstasy where you've reached that point where everything has just been doing its thing for so long that you lose a concept of self into this. Um, right. How do I say this without getting demonetized? But there's certainly a level of ecstasy that can be achieved through sexual excitation where you reach a point of bliss out, as I've called it. I'm not sure a lot of people with the male genital configuration have really been to that state because we have this idea with men that they can only reach there once and then it's like, oh, yeah. Anyways, I've clearly been, I've drunken too much to decide whether it's okay for me to talk about that or not. So we're just going to leave that there. Right. Random belief. And he talks about going through these different forms of belief and how each one is kind of an evolution into the next. And it ends with superstition, which is returning back to the beginning in some ways from what he said. The gods show themselves in all things with the paganism, basically talking about animism, and then you jump to monotheism, and then atheism, and then nihilism, and I don't feel like he understands nihilism because that is, I mean, there's the existential crisis. Nihilism is more than just the existential crisis, though. And I feel like he's just talking about here about going through the existential crisis, the idea that nothing matters. And of course, the answer to nihilism is absurdity, but absurdity is just part of nihilism. That's part of where it comes. And he doesn't even just jump to absurdism next. He jumps to chaoism, which I don't know. I suppose that's absurdity. Yeah, that's absurdity. Fair enough. As above, so below. I am the universe. The life force in us is the life force in the universe. The subtle force in us is the subtle force of the universe. The gross matter in us is the gross matter of the universe. But I feel like to really get to the heart of absurdity, it isn't just I make my own thing. There has to be the laughter. And he talks a bunch about laughter. He's going to talk about it again here, again soon in the alphabet of desire. But I want to check something. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about it again in the alphabet of desire. But this is the moment for it. Most importantly, that's the most important moment to laugh, is when you realize life is a joke. You can laugh or you can cry, and you need to learn to be able to do both. Yeah? My mom used to always say, you can laugh or you can cry. But also, Robert Anton Wilson said, it's not true unless it makes you laugh. And Jay, the trifold, demigod, puppet master, hedgehog, something or other of destruction to the third power, I can't remember all of his goddamn titles off the top of my head right now, responded, but you don't understand it until it makes you cry. Now, this is an important little bit here. That's what we're getting in here with this. He's trying to roll you through all these different paradigm shifts, right? But especially when that end of nihilism to chaos into absurdity, you gotta have both. And he's just talking about so dramatic everywhere else. And here he just doesn't even really give it anything, doesn't give it any poetry. He gives it a poem, but no poetry. And I guess maybe I have a different aesthetic desire than him. This is a matter of choice. But to me, with that point of nihilism, the understanding that nothing matters, there is no inherent value in anything, then we realize the one thing there is inherent value in, the one thing that has value unto itself, and that is humor, that is laughter. That is the one thing we are guaranteed. No matter how fucked up everything's going to be, something's going to be out. It's going to be funny. There's going to be some irony. This is the one thing that has value in and of itself. Yeah. Everything else, there is some purpose to it. There is something beyond it. There is it is something that creates value. And what it does is for something else. It does this, it does this, it has this benefit. Laughter has none of that. Even love is just for feelings of intimacy, for closeness. It can be wrote off as reproduction, sex, etc. Laughter has its own inherent value, completely devoid of anything beyond the humor that it creates. And that's why absurdity needs to be bizarre. I mean, it's answer to nihilism. It needs to be funny. This is laughter. It's hilarious. Life is a joke. So how can you cry? I laugh each world. Life is a joke. So how can you cry? I laugh each morning as I watch the world try. Yeah, not one of my best poems. Anyways, yeah, I don't feel like that needs any more discussion than it's already got. We're already 2 hours and 12 minutes in, and we finally got to the alphabet of desire, which is what we came here to discuss. Well, we came here to discuss the entire Liber, but I actually put that on the title about the alphabet of desire. Now, like I said, I have a completely different recollection of what this portion of the book was when I read it when I was like 15 or whatever. I could have sworn this whole section was about how to make your own alphabet of desire. But that's not what's going on here. Ooh, Ken's making weird noises. Clearly reaching my limit on the alcohol. We finally reached it, the alphabet of desire. So I actually really like how he has this set up. With the different symbols and then combining those symbols to make different sigils from there. And I'm quite fascinated with this bit here. I feel like a rendition of that might be an amazing thing to throw one's runes on. There are a few things where I see some real problems. Like he has hate and love simply as the male and the female symbols. And I feel like that's going to throw this whole thing askew. Just because, yeah, he's using them for hate and love, but there's certainly more to masculinity and femininity than that. And that's a really complex, weird issue that, as much as gender roles can be unimportant, that underlying aspects of that duality are part of what weaves the cosmos. So having it simplified and twisted like that is going to throw the whole thing off some, I feel like. And one of the things I find really fascinating, which we mentioned earlier, is that here he's suddenly all about the images representing their meaning. Like with lust there. It is certainly something entering into something else. There's a penetration going on there for the lust sigil. And but I like the concept. And I think maybe I just was so much struck by the idea that he made such a thing and that I could make it myself that I just completely forgot he'd even made one. And plenty of these symbols I recall seeing in all kinds of other people's chaos magic work and even knowing what they meant. So I guess part of me remembered this, but it's weird the way my brain did it. I really do enjoy how he's taken the sigils. He started out with a small set of sigils. You've got Mercury, Sulfur, and Salt Earth. And then these sigils here: sex, death, love, hate, desire, fear, pleasure, pain, elation, and depression. And then from those, in combining those, he makes all the other sigils of the alphabet of desire. Which, if I'm remembering correctly, is kind of like how kanjis are formed. Not that I know a whole lot about Japanese, but if I remember correctly, but not in the same way, because like you just kind of add the thing with the kanji, like it becomes one image with the both of them in it. If I understand correctly, I'm outside of my wheelhouse. I'm just gonna leave that alone at this point. But he adds together like let's see, what would be this greed one? Greed is what is that? Desire and earth. I don't know, I'm not sure why earth, but then he gets this symbol here from it. See, that's greed. And they got version on the other side from Mercury and Earth. Oh, I just put an F and a U on top of each other to make an aversion sigil. Anyways, it was the part I like said we were gonna talk the most about. But mostly I wanted to talk about the way he does it. Because obviously, just as before, when I look at it, the first thing I see is, oh yeah, you could do something like that, rather than this is a good set of symbols. But it is funny that I have such a Mandela effect with it. But like I said, I don't think Mandela effect's the right word. I think that because I see it everywhere and I remember seeing it other places, like with the Mandela effect, it suddenly everything's changed and you saw all kinds of stuff where you remembered it being this way and other people agreed it was that way and etc. And then suddenly no one agrees with you and it was always this other way. This I remember seeing quite a few of these symbols in other people's sigils and even kind of having a vague idea what some of them might mean. And it's good to know this stuff if you're trying to decipher someone else's sigil work, where they might be using the alphabet of desire to create their own sigils. So it's a useful information to have. And I really like the way the set of sigils has a cosmology. And he comes across with that here in the last part with making his own Kabbalah tree. But I've never taken that particular setup of sphere and ideas all that seriously. You get back into that monotheism with that. So we're gonna show a picture of it here. I do like the top part. If I can get it into focus, it's in the PDF that you can all look at. Or hopefully I've already read the book. I can't get it into focus. But it's key, perception, and will. It reminds me of an equation that I used to say a lot in high school is knowledge plus power equals freedom. Anyways, I really want to have more to say on this alphabet of desire because we've been working up to it this whole time, and then we get here, and I'm like, yeah, I like how we did it, and the only thing I can figure is that when I read it the first time, I was just so struck by the idea you could do it that I forgot all about the fact he actually had created a set. And I took it simply more as instructions on how to make my own. Because I honestly remember this part of the book as being instructions on how to make your own alphabet of desire. I mean, there is something to be said for us all using the same symbols because there's momentum of repetition behind such a thing, especially where it's esoteric and very few people know about these different sigils. So, I mean, there is a value in using these symbols. Let's see, what is it he says that you even use them for? Except for the curious condition of laughter, the main division of emotions have been equated with planetary god forms. Each one of these principles manifests in three important forms, represented here by the alchemical principles of the mercurial forms, indicates the cathartic, ecstatic, gnostic mode. Now, what does he say these are to be used for? I feel like it'd be an ideal form of divination. It'd be some of the picking up all these symbols and putting them on stones and putting them in a bag could be very useful. I guess it's just for creating an inner cosmology. And I would assume you would then use all these symbols in sigil work. But he puts each one with some kind of dualism. He's very insistent on a dualistic model. Oh, I would really like to have more to say about the alphabet of desire, but now that I've reached it, I just don't. Okay, so we got this bit here that I forgot that I didn't get to read. Thought there'd be more to it. It's the millennium bit. I'm not now that I'm looking at it. I'm not sure. Well, 1, 2, 3.5 pages. I'm not sure I should just read the whole thing out. But I suppose we are unmonetized. As long as I don't put this in a short, we should be fine. If I do get in trouble, this will be my first ding, so we'll be fine. Hopefully. The millennium. Humanity has evolved through four major states of consciousness, or eons, and a fifth is on the horizon. The first eon comes out of the mists of time. It was the age of shamanism and magic, when the rulers of men had a firm grasp of the psychic forces. Such forces conferred a high survival value on puny, naked man living in intimate communion with the dangers of a hostile environment. This form of consciousness has left its mark in the various underground traditions of witchcraft and sorcery. It has also survived in the hands of several Aboriginal cultures in which the powers were used to enforce social conformity. The second pagan eon arose with a more settled way of life as agriculture and city dwelling began. As more complex forms of thought arose and men moved farther away from nature, the knowledge of psychic forces became confused. Gods, spirits, and superstition uneasily filled the gaps created by the loss of natural knowledge and man's expanding awareness of his own mind. The third, or monotheistic aeon, arose from inside of the pagan civilization. Oh, so it's the same as his with his dice that we were talking about earlier. I don't know. I really don't want to just read the whole thing out to you. I don't like the idea of me just reading out to you. I feel like we're going to get bored. Most of you that are in the book club have read this already. The atheistic eon rose with Western monotheistic cultures and began to spread throughout the world. Some cultures remained in one eon while others have swept forward. So he's going to start getting into a bit here about how some cultures are more advanced than others, which is fun. There are signs that the fifth eon is developing exactly where it might be expected, with leading sections of the foremost atheistic cultures. So he's saying we're broaching onto the chaoist philosophy, which there is some truth that we are finally coming to terms with the fact that we must create our own value and that the world is ours for the creating. There's certainly a lot of political nihilism in our current state, and that would be where he's saying that we are. And there's absurdity arising from that. But this idea that truth can be manipulated and created as is, or it can be manipulated and created simply by repetition. And yes, the law of repetition states for every time a cycle is repeated, the momentum of its cycle increases. But that does not create truth. But it is very easy. It is very Western centric. Yes, it is. I'm not going to read this whole bit here. Um, I may have a few things that I'm going to annotate with the next book club. The death of spirituality, the death of superstition, the death of identity. This is just him going off, in my opinion, about what he thinks is coming. And I mean, in all honesty, this is me looking over it now as we're talking. It's the first time I've read this particular part of this chapter, so that isn't entirely fair. Medieval religions murdered millions to protect their own hegemony. Innumerable crusades, jihads, burnings, and massacres were committed in the end. Were committed in the end. No level of persecution could stave off the inevitable ascendancy of atheism. Well, that's true. Then we go from atheism or saying we're in a forms of not of nihilism, which we are now. Most Eastern cultures have never had a monotheistic stage, but many have gone on to the whole scientific material paradigm regardless. Indeed, that was the only part of Liber Lux I didn't like. The odd prophesizing at the end of the future stuff felt culty. Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? Like I said, I didn't get to it. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just read this all out. And then I started reading it out, and I was like, oh man, sounds like 09A shit to me. At least he didn't say, now we were going into an age of military authoritarianism. There's that. But yeah, I don't think this isn't really useful. This isn't important. I think we're just gonna leave off on it. We're just gonna call that. We don't need to hear his predictions for the future. So that's it for the book for this week. Got a little bit of beer left here. Might as well finish the beer before we get off. So next time we're gonna read Liber Aeom, and then from there, if nobody objects, we'll probably just continue on into the Psychonaut, even though it is more of Peter Carroll, and I'm becoming less and less impressed. It's not as brutal as some of the other people I read as a youngster that I then come back to later on. Not like Piers Anthony. I don't know if any of you Piers Anthony's fans, but I was a huge Piers Anthony fan when I was like 13, 14 years old. And then I come back and read some as an adult, and I was like, oh my, this is not okay. Who let this person into young adult fiction? Some of his writing's really good, but there's some really pervy stuff in there. Some really pervy stuff in there that, yeah. Why were they feeding this to 12-year-olds? Yeah. He's a very good writer, though. I certainly enjoyed his writing. You know, even as coming back to it as an adult, I didn't like, oh, this is bad writing. It's just some of this isn't like some of the themes in that X-rated stuff. Anyways, yeah, well, I don't want to, you know, definitely don't want to get dinged for talking about that. I wouldn't actually. So at this point, I wouldn't actually turn around and recommend him to somebody, a young person. I'd just stick with Douglas Adams and Terry Pratchett, stuff like that. which then as an adult is still very much holds up. Especially Douglas Adams' Holistic Detective Agency. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Man, that's a good series. So yeah, I figure we'll continue. We might as well continue till I finish my beer here. I'm mostly done with it. But that's enough about the book for tonight. The Two Souls thing. I find it quite fascinating that we have these separate traditions. The Magyar Hungarian tradition, which is also a tradition which I have. Well, I have very, very little passed down to me from that as far as knowledge. But it is a tradition that is in my bloodline. And in the Manitou tradition, which is also in my bloodline, and I have some knowledge passed down to me, that the amount of overlap between the two is fascinating. Even with the idea of that's where the idea of a witch's marks comes from. Like with the idea that, the extra nipple or the sixth finger or something like that. And it seems to come down to the idea of a chimera, which is someone who was born with two sets of DNA because they were a twin and not as identical twin, but paternal twins where one absorbed the other. In my case, it's this here. This is actually the mark where my sister's placenta was attached to my nipple. And because her twin didn't make it, my twin didn't make it, and I wound up absorbing her into me in the womb. And her placenta wound up attached right there. And that actually bled till I was like 9, 10 years of age. If I bumped it wrong, it would bleed, and it used to be very bright orange and yellow. Now you can barely see it. You can just see where essentially where there's no hair. There's like a hairless spot below my nipple there. And that's where the other placenta was attached. And that things like that, the significant birth is a big factor in both traditions. But it's a big factor in a lot of traditions. But most traditions, people get upset about that kind of thing. That's the kind of baby they leave out in the woods or something. There's traditions where they accept such children, and there's traditions where they put them outside. And I forget what my point is there. Except for that, it's interesting how much correlation there is between these two traditions. We have the idea of the lodge with the spirit hole. We're going to be talking about spirit holes soon because we're going to be adding ventilation to this area that I'm in. And while doing so, we'll essentially be creating the spirit hole. Hmm. Yes. Yes, you have that whole idea of people leaving twins out to be exposed to the elements, or children that are born with six fingers being treated in such a way. You know, and in other, like I said, in other cultures, they're glorified. The one that blows my mind is there was a little girl born in a village in India who was born with, I forget the name of the goddess, but she was born with the same amount of arms and legs as the goddess the village worshipped. And what did they do? They cut off her extra arms and legs. And then they worshiped her as the goddess. Make up your goddamn mind. Freaking humans. Crazy round eared bastards. And I've definitely I've definitely got the drink in me when I'm complaining about humans and crazy round-eared bastards. Next thing you know, I'll be going off about two legs. But anyways, I just want to thank you all for being here. Glad to have you all here once again. I so enjoy these lives. Like I said, we'll finish Liber Null, and so we'll probably do Psychonaut next, unless somebody comes up with something better. But by the end of Psychonaut, we'll come up with something else because we definitely want to keep doing these book clubs for a while. I will admit, eventually, we're going to do my book, the one that we have a link to there. And but I mean, it's I spent over 30 years writing that 100-page book. Like, it took me that long to be able to fully understand the things so that I could say them succinctly enough to write such a book. And it's obviously I think it's useful information, so we'll get to it eventually. And it probably won't even be the last one we do, but it is going to be in the rotation at some point. Um, kind of, kind of my grimoire, but not really. It I explain the mechanics and the purposes of spellcraft. Purposes. The mechanics and the necessary skills to create successful spell work. I go over how to make a sigil, how to charge it, why each step is necessary, and then I go into you know, like I was talking about just a moment ago, the like with mechanics, you have intent, form, charge, release, your typical sigil work, and then you have intent, form, charge, containment, which is the things in here that he called sorcery. I call them cantrips. There's all kinds of things that work on that model, and then variations. The first one, Sorcerer Shadow Volume 1, I feel mostly focuses on astral magic, which I would term high magic. He hasn't termed that it he hasn't termed it that in the Libernal, but almost all chaos magic, in my opinion, is magic that is working on the astral realm. It's stuff that is working. They even talked about it, how you're I forget the name of it, but before the ether, whatever he called the stuff before the ether, how you're how you're changing patterns there. But that not all magic works there. Most everything in volume one, we're talking about that, except for like the stuff where I'm talking about how I made Boris, and there's a little bit of discussion on necromancy. And then I got volume two, and that one is more about what I call low magic, folk magic, and we get into how some of that works. But anyways, like I say, we'll get into that eventually. Um, while I'm plugging stuff, we I do have memberships for the channel, 99 cents for the support, and that you mostly what you get for that is you'll have access to the few blooper rolls that are out there. There will be more of those eventually once I get more stabilized. I'm feeling there finally, and we're getting a routine with these lives. I want to start getting some actual videos back into the mix here pretty soon. But I've got a lot going on up here with trying to become a permanent resident in Canada and just trying to keep things afloat in a house with so many people. But I'm trying to get my equilibrium for it all. I'm certainly enjoying it. Life is pretty good at the moment, all told. What am I getting at? Where are we going? Finishing my beer. Oh, um, I guess you are fairly new to the channel. I married Felix Addison, who is the what do you call it? The monitor on this chat. How come their stuff is in blue? We actually met because through the Chaos Magic community, and they approached me because they were actually upset with an authority of the community, and we just kind of fell in love from there. I actually was already very aware that I was into them when they approached me. So I had like this whole thing where I was like, I need to keep my emotions out of this if I'm going to agree to be part of the thing. But then I couldn't help but flirt a little. And then they accused me of flirting with them. And I was like, yes, I am. And they're like, well, I'm cool with that. But yeah, it was, yeah. I'm 47 years old, got married for the first time a year ago. I never thought I'd get married. Felix is a good name. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things with Felix that are a first. I've mostly dated cis women before Felix, and they're I'm a trans they. I don't know what word you want me to use, love, for that. But you're trans. And they actually had a picture of themselves with their shirt off in CMG for part of a thing, and I like, wow, am I into that? And I'm like, yes, I definitely am. And before that, yeah, it was kind of changed things for me. Non-binary. Thank you, love. Trans non-binary. But yeah, opened up my thoughts were this changes things. And honestly, I didn't know what, I've always been an ally. I've always been an ally. I feel like people have a right to do whatever. People have a right to do whatever they want. Like even the idea of is it a choice or born that way? I doesn't mean anything to me personally. Either way, you do what you want to do. Anyways, I didn't mean to suddenly bring that into it. I don't want to get into a debate about those things. It's because the point is, to me, it doesn't matter. People have a right to do as they want to do. That's the whole point of chaos magic. That's the whole point of sorcery. That's the whole point of everything we're doing is the will of the self. So for me to have any objections to any of that kind of stuff would be, well, it'd be hypocritical at the very least. But I didn't know that I was, at least in this life, interested in people beyond the. Anyways, yeah, I changed things. Sometimes you see somebody and you're so attracted, you don't care what's in their pants. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I don't care what's in their pants as long as I can get in there. Anyways, um, I seem to have finished my beer. I would say the dry Irish stout is probably better than the dark lager. I do rather like this dry Irish stout. At one point during the year last year, they made a rhubarb sour. That is, the best things I've ever drank. Oh, I have a vape now, so I'm not like dying for a cigarette by the end of the live at least. Um, so if anyone has any comments, questions, concerns about anything that we've been talking about the book so far, now would be the best time. That would be a great time to bring those up. Yeah, if you actually go on my channel, there's actually a wedding video we filmed. Well, we wound up doing three different ceremonies. The first one is one that's I in some ways can say traditional because it's the way my brother got married, but I don't know where it came from. But you braid your hair together and tie it in a circle and keep it in a pouch. And I performed my brother's wedding ceremony, and that's how I did it. I performed other families' wedding ceremonies, and that's how I did it. And like there's more to it than that. There's a transfer of fire, there's some stuff that goes into it. But we did that. And then we did a legal wedding because I need to be able to do that to be able to stay in Canada. But you know, I'd already tied my hair with theirs. None of all this other stuff is just add on to me, honestly. Our hair is braided together. But then we did a legal ceremony, and I believe that's the one that is on YouTube, and like it was beautiful and significant. And then we did a hand fasting so that my some of my family could come. Unfortunately, with the way things are in this world right now, my family being mostly American, my brother came up. My dad didn't have a valid passport, but a lot of my other family, well, frankly, they're brown. And I didn't want them leaving the United States and trying to re enter the United States with what's going on right now. So I got my brother up here. You know, it was beautiful. It was great. If did a film, brought it back to the rest of my family. Anyways, um, yeah, there's a video of the wedding on my channel. If you look it up, I think it says Sorcerer Town marries the Felix. If I remember correctly. But anyways, yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and call it there. They did make they made Andy make a speech, my brother. He did a little roast of me. It was fun. It was a good time. I'd like to get more family of my family up here to visit and meet Felix, but like I said, a lot of them, well, it's just gonna have to wait. It's just gonna have to wait. Anyways, I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it there. This has been great. I very much consider many of you my friends at this point, and I'm glad to see you once again. Um, but I am going to go ahead and end the live now. Bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.